My name is Phiri, and this is the Linkage. Gender-based violence is a profound and widespread issue, not only in South Africa, but worldwide. It's a harsh reality that we are facing on a daily. GBV is known to affect mostly women and children, but in some instances, men too. It's systematic, deeply entrenched in culture, institutions, religion, and social traditions. Today, I'll be joined by Mr. Good News Cadogan, a Chief Officer Coaching at C3M Company. Sir, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. I feel welcome here.
Okay, let's just start. I think this is a very heavy topic. And in trying to figure out where we went wrong, we wanted to tackle certain parts of what could have been the roots.
Yes.
So today we'll be discussing religion as a possible root for GBV. Versus in your times and what we are witnessing today, how do you see GBV?
Wow, this is a very interesting question, but also at the same time, as you said in your introduction, it's a perennial issue and it affects all of us. And over a period of time, I can say, looking at maybe in the times of our grandparents, in the times when we were kids, compared to today, those three time frames show a marked rise in the incidence of gender-based violence.
As a woman, when I hear stories about GBV, first and foremost, if it happens to another woman, I cry. If it happens to a child, I get angry. So I would like to know, how do men process hearing about or seeing, stories on TV and newspapers about GBV? How is the process for men emotionally?
Sure. It's a little bit difficult to speak for all men because men are not like a homogeneous body of people. Some men have got a certain stage in their life that they're at that allows them to process information around GBV differently from others. So I'd like to use this construct of the stages of the heart.
Okay.
So when we are born, we actually don't have a conception of the world that is beyond our own personal needs. So that's how babies sort of process the world. And unfortunately, you have got 50 and 60-year-old and 70-year-old babies who never went through the growth phase. So those men would process GBV information differently. So to go to the details, I would probably say those men who are matured, they deal with the issue of violence between themselves and their partner in a different way to those who are not. It's a way of maybe looking at the needs of the couple as the leader of the family from that position, as opposed to looking at it from my own personal needs. So a cry out sometimes comes from a place of not knowing how to deal with conflict and expressing our needs from an emotional point of view. And then also, on the other hand, it comes from, if you look at those couples who are having kind of a life that is a dream for most, you will find that both the members of that couple are so matured that they are able to deal with conflict in an amicable kind of way without the use of violence.
Okay, based on our topic, do you think that religion is a possible route for GBV?
Wow, religion, just like any other construct in life, has got the dark side to it and the light side to it. And the dark side of religion, according to my own observation, is influenced by the immature actors and players in it. So just like in any other thing, like I've said, you will find that some of the leaders in religion and some of the followers in religion will practice in their homes gender-based violence because they don't know better.
So you're saying that it is a person's translation of what religion stands for that gives out the results of either being in the light or in the dark of religion. Is how a person processed what they heard from the religion practices that made them decide what they did.
Exactly. It's about saying, as a Christian or as a Muslim or a Hindu person, what does my religion say about how I love my partner and how I process conflict with her, and what my role is as the head of the household is. So once I take that in from a position of higher consciousness, it becomes easier for me to actually interact with my partner in a loving and empathetic way. But when I am here and I don't know better, I'm at the lower ebb of consciousness. It's all about me. So it would be incorrect to say religion caused me to act the way that I act, because the fault is with me in terms of whether I transcended my growth phase from a 0 to probably a 9-year-old kind of age, because that's where most of our development happens as human beings. From 9 to 16, further stages of development come in. But some people do not go past those stages, and they take the immaturity into their adult life. And that's why then you would see not only gender-based violence, but also even wars between nations happening because people don't know how to process conflict.
Saying that a person can be in a position of leadership and still have not developed what they should have at a certain age.
Yes, because their worldview is sort of skewed, and it's on the basis of a childlike kind of worldview. Yeah. So that's how we see the world. That's how we interact with the world, on the basis of our maturity, for lack of a better word.
I think a certain country had a president who did not develop in their childhood.
Certainly, you see many such presidents.
Yes,
who are not even, in fact, when you have a president like that, or a husband like that, or a wife like that, they cannot differentiate between themselves and the thing, whatever the thing is. So they become the thing. So I remember in my early days of work life, we had this band of managers who would be responsible for factories, and they would see the factory as themselves. You can't come into my factory because it's my factory. You can't come into my home because it's in my home. I am my home. You can't come into my country because I am my country. So in the end, once the view is like that, you can just imagine how they process conflict that they see as an infringement on their self.
on their identity.
Exactly. So there's a kind of an identity shift that happens when you meet another person and you get into a relationship.
Mr. Karogan, you're touching on something here. So you are saying that most issues that we have, it's because of lack of developing our stages of growth.
Certainly.
So everything that we are suffering, it's because someone was stuck at some stage of development in their life.
That's the way it is.
Wow.
If we could only grow to a point of moving from me, myself and I, to us, there would be better ways of dealing with conflict. Because then you're looking out for the needs of the couple as the head of the family, and that's it. And I think there is a verse in the Bible that says husbands are supposed to treat their wives like
As their own body.
as their own body, but also as fragile containers. It's just that I can't find the English word for it. But meaning that it's a bowl that is very fragile
And delicate.
and delicate. So it means you can't just drop it on the floor just like that. Neither can you punch it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Neither can you kill it.
Exactly, definitely. So as much as you will find religious men and women exercising violence as a means of conflict resolution, you can also find on the other scale religious men and women who know exactly how to connect in a loving way. And I love the way the Greek define love in using different words. So you'll find that the love between two people, they refer to it as eros. But the love that you share because you share the same religion, they define it as filio. And the love that comes from God, which is the sort of purpose-driven kind of love, they define it as agape. So before you even share eros between two people, you have got two kinds of love that actually bind you. The godly love that brought you together, and the love of one another is filio, because you share the same faith.
I think also what's crucial is the love of self.
Beautiful. You've just taken the words out of my mouth. They have a name for that as well. They call it philusia. So philusia means that I love myself. And it's not the narcissistic kind of love, the one that makes you take 60 selfies a day. No, not that one. It's more like it's a measured and non-egoistic kind of love of self.
Self-awareness. This is
Beautiful.
who I am.
Yes.
This is what I love. And if you love yourself, if you respect yourself, then it's easy to then give the next person that.
Certainly.
So when people are in this GBV scenario, the woman sometimes, most of the time, they would stay, maybe if they're married to such a person, because they blame themselves, not knowing that actually it's not about them. It was never about, it was never about you. It was about the person and how they translate love for themselves. I think this is very sad because now there are kids in the picture.
Certainly.
And the cycle has now grown, like you're saying, that GBV has risen. So now the cycle has grown to a point where this is a monster. We're dealing with a monster because of the people before them. How then do we think we can move forward? What can we then do to try and change and curb GBV being even worse for the next generation?
If we go back to those stages of development, the main kind of focus and the anchor of the lower stage of development is the ego. So in my ego state, it's all about me. Probably in the higher stages, it's more about my soul. So it's a measured ego that takes me into the soul space. That is the attractor for self-love when I become a soul. And it's only then that I would be able to find a soulmate. So when you have a soul-to-soul kind of relationship between these two people, it's when you can then discount violence as a means of sorting out issues. Because it's a soul that loves itself, having fallen in love with another soul that loves itself, and the soulmates treat each other as one, because they are bound by all these kind of loves that we spoke about. And those loves then become the glue that holds them together to be able to process. Always, I mean, when you have got more than one person in the room, you'll always have conflict. There's no ways you cannot have conflict, but it's how that conflict is processed. Once it becomes dysfunctional, it sort of escalates into violence. But if it is functional conflict and we're still able to give time out to each other, because sometimes we can't deal with the issue. One of the parties cannot deal with the issue at the time. So compassion and patience then allows the other party to give time out to the other partner so that they can be able to process. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Mr. Karagan, I don't think we can finish this topic. It is so heavy and so weighted and so deep. You have to come back at some
Good.
point for us to go even deeper.
Yes.
So the linkage is all about where we are, where we're from, and where we want to see the next generation. So as the gatekeepers for the next generation, what can we start cultivating for a better future?
The present generation is blessed because it has a view of the past that is informed by what they have been told by those that came before them. It's also blessed because of consciousness. We are able to deal with these issues on different platforms so that there is increased awareness. From a statistical point of view, we know where GBV is at, and we know how much it is affecting each and every soul on earth, and more especially in South Africa. So that kind of awareness of the present and knowledge of the past should give us some kind of a motivation that we are motivated to create a future that is better than the present that we have. If only we can do that, we will make sure that we hand over the world that we live in to the next generation in a better shape than we found it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Karagan.
Beautiful.
I mean, words of wisdom and insight. I'm perplexed. I'm like, I don't know where front is, backward is. But I thank you so much because I believe that our conversation will start a rippling effect of people questioning themselves and starting to be aware of who they are.
Yes.
And so for us to create a better future, because what we're facing now is just not on and it can't continue.
It is not acceptable.
No.
And I think there's a role to play here because today's focus is religion. There's a role for religious leaders to play the role that they were ordained to play, to actually create that glue in the home environment to ensure that GBV is sort of decreased.
Yes, for them to also practice what they preach, because they say something before us and then at the back it's something else. And it's very sad when that happens, because then what happens to a person on the ground?
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, sir.
All right.
I think to any person who is a leader, I think let's start really searching ourselves. Self-love is what came out of this conversation, that it's not necessarily something else that causes whatever, but it is the fact that, do you love yourself? Do you value yourself so that you can give that to the next person? So is religion really a possible cause? Thank you so much for joining us today on The Linkage. I love you and stay blessed.
Oh, Jehovah.
Thank you so much for joining us today on The Linkage. Wow, what a topic. We were discussing if religion is a possible route for GBV. And to my shock, many other things came up as a reason. Self-development is crucial. We need to learn to love ourselves and be aware of who we are so that we can give that to the next person. To any woman and children and men who've suffered GBV, it wasn't about you. And I'm very sorry. I pray and hope that we start learning to love ourselves. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube for more conversations. I love you and stay blessed.